and welcome to the Proptech Panel. I'm Kylie Dillon and I chair the Proptech Association's West Australian and South Australian Committee. I'm the founder of Real-Time Conveyancer, Technology for Conveyancers, and for some 30 years now, I've worked in conveyancing. Conveyancing also involves multiple stakeholders, processes and tasks, which means there are plenty of great opportunities in there for technology to help us. And there are always plenty of legal documents required whenever you buy or sell residential property. So the topic of the panel today is definitely one that is really close to my heart. We're talking about the intersections of PropTech and legal tech. And just before we get started, on behalf of the PropTech Association, I'd like to say a big thank you to the foundation supporters and sponsors, especially REWA, the Real Estate Institute in my very own home state of Western Australia, Stone & Chalk, who are our event partner today, PEXA, who are on today's panel, and Ashurst, who are the principal sponsor of the 2023 PropTech Awards. Entries are now open. We're also very grateful for the support of PropTrack, MRI Software, and WebIT List Once. Now, here is the PropTech Association's Vice President, Jennifer Harrison, who will introduce our guests and take it from there. Over to you, Jen.
Thank you so much, Kylie. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's panel. I'd like to acknowledge before we get started that I am currently on Wallumedegal land in Sydney, and I would like to welcome and pay respects to all First Nations people who might be joining us today, especially elders past, present, and emerging. Every month on the panel, we get 3 expert guests on to talk about a theme. Today's theme is the intersections of PropTech and legal tech. And I'm very excited to have 3 amazing women on the panel. We thought for the month of March, with it being International Women's Day, we'd have an all-girl panel. And we're always very excited for that. So I'd like to welcome my 3 expert guests for today's discussion, starting with Rukhsana Sashankhan from PEXA. Hello, Rukhsana, how are you today?
Hi, Jennifer. I'm well today, and I'm joining you from Meanjin land in Brisbane.
Lovely, thank you. And my second guest today is Judith Hammerschlag from Contracts. Hello, Judith, how are you today?
Hi, Jennifer, I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
And where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from Gadigal land at the moment.
Lovely. And my third guest today, who you're on mute, Lara, just letting you know, my third guest today is Lara Paholski from the Law Store.
Thank you, Jennifer, very much for having me, and I'm joining you today from Adelaide.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, Rukhsana, let me start with you first. For people who don't know, could you start off by saying, please, what does PEXA stand for? What's the name? Is it short for something?
Sure is, Jen. It's PEXA. PEXA stands for Property Exchange Australia.
Okay, perfect. So that probably leads into the next question, which is for people who don't know PEXA. In a nutshell, and I know that's a bit of a tough brief given how much breadth and depth PEXA have, but could you try and explain, please, in a nutshell, what does PEXA do?
PEXA is a world-first online platform that facilitates the lodgement of registry documents and financial settlement through a secure digital settlements room where the parties to a transaction virtually meet. It's integrated the platform is integrated with state revenue offices and land registries across the country, which allows the fluid exchange of data and information. And right now, more than 85% of property transactions in Australia are undertaken on PEXA.
Wonderful. So in terms of that core like property settlement platform and that functionality, and that's probably what most people know PEXA for.
Sure.
What's the core problem there that you solve for? Can you actually maybe this is going back. I actually don't know how far back in time we need to go for this. But my very first job, I was a graduate at Westpac, and I had to spend a period of time in a branch. And one day my job was to take a bank check to a settlement. But that's my one and only experience of being in the physical room. But Can you share with it, what was it like when we had to all get into a physical room? What was it like? And then how have you actually harnessed technology as a solution to make that a digital room? And what are the benefits for everyone?
Look, I think, lots of lovely questions in there. So I'll start with the core problem. And when I think about the core problem for PEXA Exchange, it really was about, and still continues to be, solving for inefficiency. And, as and I'm sure we'll talk more about today in our discussion, is that each property transaction has so many moving parts. And not only do they have moving parts like documents and payments and signing, but also so many participants, all dependent on each other to ensure settlement occurs when the buyers and the sellers are expecting it to. So if we do go way back, around sort of 2010, 2011, we started replacing that paper process, at which, from time to time when you think about it, and it is arguable at times, but it was a time-consuming and error-prone process where physical documents, like you said, Jen, you were wet signed, mailed around, and checks were drawn, and you physically had to go into a physical settlement room and exchange documents
at the
with the other side. Yes,
at the document exchange. Yes,
that's right. So we did that, and then what PEX has done in terms of addressing the inefficiency in that process is streamlined it by enabling parties now to collaborate with each other, lodge documents, exchange funds, and complete those transactions electronically, and essentially addressing those inefficiencies of time, reducing that time and the cost involved in completing those transactions, and also by doing that, minimizing some of that risk associated with those costs and time delays, with errors, delays, and fraud. So that was sort of, I would say, the PEXA sort of inefficiency, sort of addressing that problem then. But more so now, what we're battling with in terms of inefficiency is around the multiple systems our customers are using to process a property transaction. It's also the dependencies between the participants in a transaction, where we are waiting on each other still, even though it's a virtual space, and also the difficulty of settling some of the more complex transaction types, which are yet to come into scope. So that's where our focus is at the moment, Jen, in terms of our platform, is to continue to bring those efficiencies to our users.
Yeah, and some of those dependencies, I think anyone who's been through the process will understand. You're right, those dependencies, there's a whole cascade and there can be interconditionality. And I do remember I was told I do not let hold of the bank check until the bank's solicitor, who was someone I'd never met before, right? Until the bank solicitor gave me the nod. It's like, okay. It's amazing now that they let a 21-year-old graduate do this job. But anyway, yeah. So how it sounds like a really good problem for technology to solve. What might be some people's experiences from a technology perspective of PEXA?
I think for a start, part of it is that streamlining, and we talked about efficiency. The other thing also is, from a user point of view, it's a cloud-based platform, so it enables multiple parties to access and exchange information in real time, and not, I would say, a technological breakthrough by any measure, but a huge improvement on the previous paper process, as we've just talked about in terms of an experience. The other one, in terms of the way I guess we harness technology, is the use of digital signatures to sign documents and financials in each settlement. We do abide by a very high standard of digital signatures. We are gatekeeper compliant in that way. And that also ensures only authorised parties can approve a transaction to proceed. And I think the other one also is when we talk about technology and the way we've sort of harnessed that for our solution is the integration with other systems. So we do integrate with 6 land registries for the electronic lodgement component. We've got the revenue offices that we're integrated with for stamp duty, the RBA for those real-time payments, the ATO for their forms, and bank payment gateways to ensure that we're offering our users more options in terms of payments. And then we've also got our users who have their own systems that we integrate with. So that's those are the ways in which we would say the various sort of experiences of it, the benefits of the exchange when we do have our customers sort of signing in.
It sounds fantastic, because for most people, You know, buying and selling property is one of the biggest financial transactions they will ever enter into in their life. I know also that PEXA has a specific offering for property developers who have this problem at scale, right? They might be releasing 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 or more properties onto the market, and they might be all settling within weeks of each other. Can you tell us a bit more about the particular challenges faced by property developers at settlement time? How does PEXA help with the PEXA Projects app?
Yeah. Well, PEXA Projects is definitely, well, it's specifically designed for developers. And the pain points around settlements for developers that we address with PEXA Projects as a solution, there's a varied range of benefits, but ones I'd like to call out here are the transparency and the pipeline views that developers have with PEXA Projects, where you've got the project status of multiple lots in one dashboard. It's also about the accuracy of reporting that we can provide them for their financiers, and there's the real-time payment as well. So they're no longer waiting for those bank checks to clear, and those are and all those for us right now from a developer client point of view is what we're addressing in terms of their needs. But in terms of like what we're working on as well, it would be good to talk to that as well. We are at the moment looking at settlement forecasting and reporting, because we've heard from our customers in this segment that is exceptionally crucial to them. Mm-hmm. And that's very, very pleased to say that that's what we're going to be focusing on in the next coming months.
Wonderful. Okay. So is that kind of just, is that like kind of like a prediction as to what tasks have been completed and where we are in the timeline?
Yes.
What the team can expect on a rolling basis going forward?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So I mentioned before, like for most people, buying and selling property is one of the biggest financial transactions they'll ever experience in their life. These are very large amounts of money that need to move in order to settle. How does PEXA help to safeguard funds from fraud? And you did mention the integration with the RBA, but maybe you could talk a bit more about how do you make sure that that money moves as quickly as possible?
So Jen, it's the property is I would say in Australia, from what I know, it's roughly now a $10 trillion asset class. And so therefore there's zero tolerance for risk. So the PEXA system security is aligned with international standards, and we continue to operate by complying with those requirements set by the e-conveyancing regulator, who are ARNEC, and we are also certified as an ISO 27001. 001, I've got to get that right, an ISO 27001 organisation. And as of today, more than 11 million transactions have been safely conducted on the PEXA platform. So we are a robust, in terms of security measures, we provide a very robust protection for our customers and their clients when using the platform. We have the multi-factor authentication process to access the system. And we also have for our subscribers, and that's who we reference as our customers, our subscribers to the platform, they also have to adhere to a security policy which sets out those security requirements for them to adhere to. We know that email can be an insecure means of sharing bank account details, and phishing can occur when, as a result of those fraudulent payments. So we do recommend that subscribers and their clients use what we have as a product offering called PEXA Key. And that's an opportunity and a way to be able to communicate bank account details securely. And we built that specifically in response to cyber fraud and email phishing. And it links directly with the PEXA platform. And, when I hear stats like that payment redirection scams cost Australian businesses over 128 million in 2020, all scams reported surged to 323 million in 2021, according to the ACCC Scam Watch. That's scary figures, and it's only just the reality is beyond real anymore for our profession, our industry, and our community. So I think yes, we have PEXA Key, yes, we have the systems in place, but beyond that, I think, it's definitely not exclusive to PEXA. And we, from our point of view, it's the way in which we do this is to ensure that, yes, we're doing what we can from a security framework point of view and securing, offering that for our customers, but also to ensure we're working with our industry to heighten the awareness of cybercrime and support them as a community to implement those measures where possible.
Yeah, someone said to me, it's not milkshake money that we're talking about here. And if you are a cyber criminal, targeting residential property settlement seems like a no-brainer, right? Because people are moving tens, hundreds, millions of dollars. And I think it's, I believe that the ACCC Scam Watch gets 3 complaints a week about scams in the property industry. And that's probably only 10 to 15% of what is actually, what's getting reported is probably just the tip of the iceberg. So I think it's incredibly important that we all do whatever is necessary, even though multi-factor and all the rest, it does seem like, I know for some people, they think it's, it's a pain. They don't understand why they have to do it. Rukhsana, can you share with us what's coming up on the PEXA roadmap? Are you able to give us a bit of a sneak peek?
Yeah, always love to talk about the PEXA
that are coming up.
Love to talk about the PEXA roadmap. And so one of our major focuses this year are our APIs. So giving our customers the ability to directly integrate with PEXA and do their work from their own systems rather than logging into our web portal is going to be a huge efficiency and customer boost. And we recognize this. So we already have a suite of APIs that are more tech savvy for our, we already have a set of APIs that our more tech savvy customers are plugged into, but we are broadening that scope for all of our customers and hopefully encourage them to integrate with us. And so that's work in progress, but what to expect in our roadmap. The other one also that I'm really excited about is that we will be looking at delivering mobile signing. So we want to move away from the cumbersome hard tokens being used today to digitally sign documents and financials without compromising our high level of security. So signing via your mobile phones or mobile provides exactly that. So it's early days yet, but that's definitely one that's on our roadmap. And I thought, Jen, it'd be good to sort of probably also talk about what we're doing with our UK expansion as well. So the UK infrastructure certainly has not been a lift and shift from Australia, and we are building new technology to go together with ThoughtWorks for the UK. We're following a similar delivery pathway to Australia, beginning with a remortgage, which is a refinance solution, which we launched last September in England and Wales. We're leveraging the brand new payment scheme. It's called PEXA Pay, which has been built in collaboration with the Bank of England. And we'll be scaling this solution this year, welcoming more lenders. So it's just a little bit of an insight into our UK expansion as well.
Fantastic. There has been a question put into the Q&A from Stephen, and he's pointed out that often it's a real estate agent that will take the 10% deposit to exchange the contracts. Is it currently possible for real estate agents to also use PEXA Key so they can communicate BSB and account number details securely?
Good question, and no, it isn't. PEXA Key is purely for our customers, and customers at the moment, like from our point of view, our customers are the ones who use our exchange, being the lawyers and conveyancers. So there is definitely something there that Stephen's talking about in terms of that need, and I can't talk to the real estate market, but yeah, for us, the key, PEXA Key is definitely for, and all intention is for our customers being our practitioners and lawyers and conveyancers.
Okay, great. And Rukhsana, last question for you before I go and talk to Judith is, what are some of the ways that PropTechs can work with PEXA? You've mentioned API integrations, but I'm also aware that PEXA has an accelerator program called PX Ventures.
Yeah. So through our PX Ventures board, we are always looking for opportunities to explore and enhance the wider property ecosystem for our customers. Our product digital growth teams are currently actually working with some amazing startups. And I thought, we did talk about property developers previously. So just talking about sort of how we're working, I guess some examples of how we're working with some startups, wonderful startups, one of them being OPEX. So off the plan contract solution for lawyers and conveyancers, developers, real estate agents and financial institutions. We also partnered with Value Australia. So when large developers need to understand and estimate value creation impact for developments or infrastructure projects, we're working with them to offer a more enhanced solution for our developer customers. There's also Land Checker. I'm sure you know about the partnership with Land Checker, but more specifically for what that means for our developer customers as well is that we're taking out that sort of time-consuming research around sourcing and consolidating information from multiple sources, and also just sort of enabling them to be able to assess project feasibility, identifying potential development opportunities, etc., with Land Checker. So yes, those are just a few of several startups that we've partnered with to enhance our offering to our customers.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rikshana. That's a lot. We'll come back and have a chat later. But now, Judith, let's have a talk about contracts. Can you start off, please, by giving us your elevator pitch?
The elevator pitch, sure. So contract sits at the other end to PEXA, which is at the contract review amendment point in buying property. So right at the beginning, when you find a property that you like on the weekend and the agent gives you the contract and you've got to go get it reviewed by your conveyancer and lawyer. That's where we sit. So we've built some tech that you can upload your contract directly to our website, and then we will review the contract within 24 hours with a tech-based platform. And our product is for lawyers and conveyancers to use, as well as consumers who can head directly to our website. So we built contracts because of the pain point, essentially, that we were finding as lawyers, conveyancing lawyers, in this very specific part of buying property at that contract review stage.
Mm. So can you tell us a little bit more about the problems? As you mentioned, often you might go and inspect a property. It might be on your list of possibles. You might not know whether you're going to put in an offer or bid at auction. But one of the things you should do as due diligence is, I suppose I better have someone who's got a legal qualification look at this contract. What are some of the things that people should, what can come up as part of that review of the contract? Can you tell us a little bit more about the problem that you're solving for there?
Sure. So I think one of the problems in the process, before I talk about the risks of the actual contract, is that in the property market in Australia, especially in the big cities, the speed at which the market moves is just crazy. So you're dealing with big assets, big risks, as you say, the biggest financial decision that most people will make in their lives. And the legal nitty-gritty is caught up in this contract that is actually of huge importance. So the things to look out for in a contract, I guess, are the commercial risks, which is what our tech will pick up. So there's risks that there might be an easement running. This is so very technical, but there's an easement running through the property in the backyard, which means that you won't be able to build a swimming pool. So you've got to adjust your price at auction to say, look, this is going to be a house without the swimming pool, things like that. Or if there's a risk, we were talking about deposits at agents before. So it's always a risk that if a deposit gets released to a vendor and they default on the purchase, that you might lose your deposit. So things like that, those are the bits and pieces that we pick up in the contract for lawyers and conveyancers and purchasers alike.
Mm. And so how are you using technology as the solution there? Yeah,
sure. So the old school way of getting a lawyer to look over your contract is just too slow. So you used to, at one point in time, have the opportunity to find a property in a really slow and thoughtful manner, and then find a lawyer and send it off and do an engagement letter and everything else. if you do that in certain parts of Australia now, the property's already been sold 5 days before you've, got your lawyer looking over the contract. So the engagement of the conveyancer and lawyer is really quick because you can just upload the contract directly to contracts. And then it gets picked up for review very quickly. So that's the first, just the onboarding part that we use technology for. And then also to tackle the actual nitty-gritty of the legals in the contract. So we did a huge amount of research on how lawyers and conveyancers are actually reviewing contracts. And it resulted in like some really interesting findings. As the lawyers that print out contracts, there's the conveyancers that have 5 screens. So we hyperlink clauses to the parts of the contract so that everyone can really understand what they're looking at in the contract and check against what's actually in it, as opposed to saying clause 5 says here, you can click on clause 5 and see what it actually says. So that's our tech. And then also the amendment request. So this is another big risk area in conveyancing, especially in the residential market, is when requests go out on a contract, you want to go buy a property at auction on Saturday and you need to ask for a 10-week settlement or clause 5 be removed. The way that amendments are made to contracts, to say it really bluntly, is pretty risky and very clunky. So we've put that all on platform so that anything that is requested and agreed to will automatically form part of an appendix that whoever is handling the exchange can just attach to the contract and get the parties to sign, which means that it's done in a legally sound manner.
Okay, great. Now, you mentioned before you are both B2B and B2C. Your platform's available to conveyancers and lawyers as well as direct to consumers. Can you talk a bit more? How are you actually approaching, getting your clients going to market? Do you have an ideal client? And a question's come up in the chat. Someone would like to know, are you live in all states across Australia?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, good questions. So we are, we started with the beast, which is New South Wales, which probably has the most hectic of market speed around Sydney. So we are live now in New South Wales and the ACT, and we're hopefully rolling out the tech into the other states and territories sometime this year. Your other question was, what's our
go to market? Yep.
Yeah, sure. So buyers, we are finding, consumers are finding us naturally. They're looking for someone to review their contract and they're looking to take action straight away without having to make phone calls, especially the younger market. So they're finding us quite naturally. The B2B market has been very, very, very interesting. So there are a lot of people handling conveyances and it's very different profiles. You've got single conveyancers who are sole practitioners and they are using us for a support essentially. So we're like their outsourced paralegal. And then you've got the bigger firms that are using us who can see that they can get sort of some economies in their practice. So we're just seeing a whole range of people using it. But it's reassuring that this is, as Luciana was saying before, settlements have always been a massive pain point for conveyancers and lawyers. And I have that also, that experience of being shouted at in a settlement room and holding checks and running down to the bank and, doing all that. Where we sit is also another huge pain point for practitioners and purchasers. And that's right at the front end of when you're starting to look at buying property.
And a question also has come up in the chat. So are you focused just on the contract review? And this might lead into another question, which is going to ask you what's coming up on your product roadmap.
Sure,
are you potentially trying to expand into other parts of the settlement value chain? Or are you just thinking you're going to focus on the contract review part?
Sure. So the contract review is quite is where we're focusing at the moment. But we are now in the contract negotiation stage as well, which is also quite time pressured and risk. It's quite loaded with risk. And then the exchange part of the process, that's when, you know, the contract review and amendments all flow on. So that's where we're sitting at the moment between contract review and exchange. That's really where we sit currently.
And what kind of feedback are you getting from, you know, for example, that, you know, sole suburban conveyancing practitioner or lawyers or consumers?
Yeah, so we are getting people are shocked that we have tackled this really hard legal nitty gritty of the industry and the process, because it just is such high risk. But we've had an amazing team of lawyers, and we've seen a huge amount of contracts come through our system now. So we you know, feel confident that we can really tackle the bad clauses and the bad easements and all the technical parts of buying a property. I guess we're a market first, so the conveyancers we've been met really warmly as a sort of a legal team, an outsourced legal team for small time conveyancers. And the purchasers like us because they like you know, they don't want the old school lawyer engagement. They want to just move quickly. And also if their lawyer, look, lots of people have huge loyalty to their lawyers, fairly so. They've got family lawyers. If their lawyer is unavailable, they can still use us for this part of the process and then engage their lawyer when they've got time. But if an auction's happening in an hour or it's a Sunday bid, we're around for that.
Right. What's coming? Was to say a couple of questions have come up in the chat.
Sure.
Someone has asked, do you have real lawyers who get involved in reviewing the contracts? And someone else has asked, how does it work in terms of the liability of the conveyancer or the solicitor to their client if they're outsourcing certain parts of their job to you?
Yeah, that's all good questions. So we are a legal team. We are a legal team sitting in Sydney. We're all lawyers, but we've got a team of paralegal and conveyancers, but all locally based, which was really important for us to have a local team. Now we so we have legal liability and insurance because we're all lawyers as well, and we're actually an incorporated law firm. However, we're not taking away the role of the conveyancer. We basically still provide we provide the framework for a conveyancer to speed up their processes and review the contract for their client. So how our tech works is a conveyancer or a buyer will upload the contract and we will provide some suggested comments based on what we found. And then the conveyancers and lawyers can modify it and check what we've done and send it off. So look, we take, you know, we understand that this is a huge area of responsibility that we've tackled, and we don't take that role lightly. But there's always going to be a role for the conveyancer and the lawyer to check and amend and modify and make it customize the framework to what their clients' needs are.
Yeah. And other than, you mentioned you might be getting involved in applying your technology into contract negotiations.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that's coming up on your product roadmap?
I think not really, apart from, you know, attacking the negotiations and the exchange. It's very interesting to see what data we're getting on the clauses and what's in contract. So that's quite interesting. And hopefully at some point we can automate certain and bring in some sort of automation of some of the contract, the clauses, a bit of AI. That's very interesting to us, which we're taking a close look at as well.
Okay. And final question for you, Judith, and then I'll move on to Lara. Someone has asked, as you mentioned, you're obviously getting to see a lot of contracts and a lot of clauses and lots of different ways to essentially attack the same, you know, purpose of documenting a property sale and purchase. Someone has asked, do you pass any of this information on to any third parties?
No, not at all. We haven't. Yeah, no, we just look, I think a lot of our data would probably bore people. Clause 5 means, you know, X or a drainage diagram. But no, it's all kept in the internal team. But look, it is interesting to be getting the data on what is in a conveyancing contract in the States and in New South Wales in particular. It's quite a small area of law, but there are a huge, and you know, Shana could tell you there are a huge amount of practitioners doing conveyancing. So whilst it's a small area of law, there's quite a varied range of practitioners and clauses in a standard conveyancing contract.
Thank you so much, Judith, for telling us about contracts.
Thank you.
Lara, let's have a chat about the Law Store and Live Sign. So my first question to you is also, give us your elevator pitch.
Okay. So our product, or main product being Live Sign, we are operating at the intersection of digital signatures and verification of identity. So if I can just take a quick step back to give some background to that, in the move to, if we think about digital documents getting signing, digital signatures, I feel the industry has been very quick to adopt that, and there's some great technologies out there. We have developed our own, but in the move to digital, the whole premise of digital signing, the whole premise of the core fundamental premise of witnessing actually got somewhat lost along the way. So while we know that someone might write, as an example, Lara, they've signed that document digitally, we don't actually know anymore who's behind the device. And that's where we saw a gap in the market, and where we've combined bringing digital identity, or simultaneously making sure we're doing that and giving practitioners the tool to do that at the time their consumer is signing a digital document, so that you can know with absolute certainty who is signing that document and who is in control of the device. And that's where we saw a real gap. We didn't think there was anyone, and we were first to market to actually combine digital signing with real-time verification of identity, so that you knew who your signer was.
Great. So can you tell us a little bit more about how do you go about that digital verification of identity, and how are you using technology to bring this solution?
Yeah, so we've built good question, thanks Jen. We've built our own digital signing technology and then expanded that out to specific use cases. So I'll give what I think is a relevant example here today. If we think of a client authorization form, which Shana and Judith will be very familiar with as well, which gives a legal practitioner authority to deal or act on behalf of a consumer. We have a workflow whereby you can send that out to the client, or a conveyancer, a lawyer, real estate agent, whoever might be sending one of those out, to get that digitally signed using our signing technology. And at the precise point of signing, the consumer, after they've done that, it almost goes into a pending stage, where we then actually kick into doing a real-time verification of identity. So we'll get that person or the consumer to go and get their passport, license, and we drill down through the categories of ID, which are compliant with ARNEC, or the e-conveyancing regulator, which Shana touched on earlier. We'll drill down through the categories of ID. If someone hasn't got a passport, go down to license, etc., to make sure that they meet a category of ID. They'll go and get their license and passport and capture images of that. Then they'll take a selfie. We'll biometrically match their facial features against the government issued ID. And then once that's done, that's finished from the consumer's point of view, and the legal practitioner or bank, any of our clients will then be notified to say the client's finished their verification of identity, signing, and they'll receive a simultaneous or correlating pack of a verification of identity report to review, along with the signed documents with correlating transactional codes to ensure that they are tied together and we're done in the same transaction.
Fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit more about how are you going to market? Who do you have an ideal client? Are you mostly B2B? You're focused on the solicitors and conveyancers out there?
Yes, we very much are, Jennifer. We are B2B, much like what Judith was talking about before. We my sweet spot, I've spent, a decade in legal tech. So that's been very much a focus for us in the legal and conveyancing. We've got also very much focused on financial and property and real estate industries, because there's some obviously huge risk points there of signing documents for large sums of money, and people are, you know, not sure who's actually signing those documents when they receive them back. So that's been a really key focus for us to focus on, again, financial, legal, conveyancing, property and real estate industries, and we're looking to expand beyond those as well.
Laura, a question's come up in the chat. Someone's wondering, do you kind of store any of these ID details such that the same signatory could just sign again? Or maybe that defeats the purpose of actually knowing exactly who's signing every time a document is signed?
Yeah, we basically what we're doing is we're providing a tool for each transaction that's being undertaken to get the document signed and conduct a correlating verification of identity. Now, it's up to the firm or the client if they would like to rely upon that again. In the world of conveyancers and lawyers, a verification of identity, that data, actually there is a requirement, funnily enough, still to store that for a minimum of 7 years. And if it is a repeat client, they can actually refer to that verification of identity report again. In terms of signatures, we're certainly not encouraging people to be using that over again. And I think, you know, with recent data hacks, Jennifer, I think people have very much moved away from just relying on old verification of identity reports and old documents. You know, it's something we're working really hard on to educate the industry. We are imploring them, you know, to think about how they're storing data and not taking that risk on themselves. We are, you know, please choose a partner, whether it's someone else or us, to do that for you. And in light of, you know, Medicare, you know, Optus, Latitude Financial, even this week, we're I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, 7.9.
Oh, it's millions of driver's license details.
Yes, 7.9 million, I think it was. Yeah, Australian and New Zealand driver's licenses have been stolen or the data compromised. So in light of even back at Optus and Medicare, what we have done and moved very quickly to do is we're now actually providing practitioners. So we store all the data so they don't have to take that risk on. They can do it if they want to, but again, we encourage them not to, and we make it accessible at all times to them. But we've actually redacted the personal identifiable information within our verification of identity reports, so that if something was to get stolen or an identity hacker was to get in, the record of having done the VOI is actually there, but there's no of the personal data being compromised, that it's near on useless to an identity theft.
Got it.
Yeah.
What kind of feedback are you getting from the market?
Well, certainly in terms of how quickly we've moved to redact some of that data and providing solutions around that without them having to compromise having accessibility, we're actually getting great feedback. I don't think many have moved quickly to do that in our space, Jennifer. But they, you know, if we look at the real estate industry, some of the, you know, agents are in a really difficult position where they're being asked to get their clients' identity data and store it, and yet, you know, there's all these you know, identity hacks and theft going on, so that they're always being compromised. Store this, capture this, you know, without necessarily having all the big systems that Medicare or Optus will have to manage it.
No, not at all. I mean, the real estate industry is actually a very fragmented industry. If you think of the people that you will encounter or may have encountered when you're buying and selling real estate, your mortgage broker, your conveyancer, your real estate agent, are probably just a local, you know, small business.
Very much. Yeah. And that's why we're imploring everyone to, yeah, don't take the risk on yourself. As I said before, if you can, whether it's us or someone else, don't carry that risk, and put yourself and your client and yourselves and your brand identity yourselves at risk, or company reputation. Partner with some experts who have actually taken the time and invested in the money, technology and security for you to make your legal or compliance obligations, and yet not be risking or having to risk any of the, or compromising storage of that data.
Yeah, fantastic. And what's coming up on your product roadmap? Are you able to share any sneak peeks with us?
Yes, so we've got some specific user cases, as I mentioned before, that we've already built out for the mortgage industry, for signing digital and secure signing of mortgages, ECAF, which is our client authorization form solution, and then we're looking to build out that for other industries or some other use cases as well, specific to various industries. And we are actually also looking to expand beyond the shores of Australia. With our, I didn't mention before, Jen, but we actually extract the data from a passport out of the chip in the passport. Most providers will just take a photo of the passport page. We actually extract it out of the raw data at the chip in a passport, which gives us coverage in just over 100 countries around the world. So we feel we're well placed to operate globally. And in fact, we already are from the shores of Australia, but it's now just whether we actually set up, go beyond the shores and set up a presence overseas.
Amazing. Thank you so much for telling us about LiveSign, Lara. If anyone does have a question for anyone on the panel, please do use the Q&A or chat facility. I might just throw around a couple of general questions now. Rukhsana, I know we were in preparation for this, you said this panel had caused you to think a little bit about, what are the intersections of prop tech and legal tech, and maybe what is the sweet spot of the intersection there. Would you like to share a little bit more about what your thoughts were, please?
I'd love to, Jen. And I think my personal background is property law. So I've come from a lawyer, I was a lawyer before joining PEXA, and I was very fortunate to have a couple of actually really good lawyers who also had a very tech savvy background. So I really saw the benefit of the knowledge of property and technology for a practice, and how that sort of, really sort of benefited the operations as well as the overall customer experience. And then moving into PEXA and looking at PropTech and just bringing those two together because I was also a PEXA customer before moving in. So I've been very passionate about how to see the way those intersections do work. And more and more as, I've been now with PEXA for 6 odd years and learning a lot from the industry and from the wonderful people here on this panel as well. What we can see is that regardless of what the technology is, whether it is in the actual legal space or in the prop tech space, we are solving human problems, and those solutions really need to be underpinned by a real genuine commitment to continue to go back to our target markets, so to our genuine customers and those that really require that. And I think from personal experience from myself, we can say that we do listen to our customers. Sometimes we can be overambitious and overreach. Then we've got to pull back and work that out. And that's that fine line in those intersections of going, yes, we do want to conquer the world and make sure we can give absolutely everything to our customers, but at what but what is that position and what is our ultimate responsibility in the space that we play, and and how we go about that. So yeah, I'm keen to hear from Judith and Lara on that as well. But I just think, from that sort of human element aspect, we've got some amazing customers across the and industry that we access to be able to make sure that we're sort of on point in relation to that. And I guess one more thing also is the empathy. It's not something that we've definitely created more of in PEXA, is sort of empathy journeys, and creating the opportunity for our product team to have more connection with our customers to understand what that empathy journey is in their actual process of property, to see whether we do have those solutions that we can play back to them to say, does that actually solve the need from an intersection point of view of property and tech? Yeah.
I think it's interesting to see, or it will be interesting to see with legal tech. A lot of prop tech initially was aimed at real estate agents. It was aimed at helping real estate agents be more efficient and get more done during the day. It wasn't initially aimed direct at the consumer. but now the consumer prop techs are coming up behind that and are offering their technology direct to consumer. And as some of them are actually now trying to disrupt real estate agents, actually. They're trying to offer alternative, listings, platforms and sale direct by seller. I think it'll be really interesting to see with legal tech how that evolution goes. And I know PEXA, you're already enabling, some of like with PEXA Key, I think the seller and buyer can go in directly and see, the timeline of their transaction. And Judith, you said that your service is available direct to the consumer as well. I'm just wondering, Judith, are you seeing any particular differences in those two markets, in the professional market versus the consumer market?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think that the problem that we're tackling for both of those markets is the speed and the risk inherent in where we sit as mainly residential property. And those problems are for the buyer who is getting pressured to put in offers, as well as the lawyer who is getting pressured by the buyer to put it, to review the contract to put. So those pressures are exactly the same. So I'd say speed and risk. But I think for the conveyancers and lawyers, as we're talking, unfortunately, I think the risk is getting bigger and bigger. And so if there's any tools that you can use, to mitigate your risk as a conveyancer lawyer, that's going to flow onto the buyer. So it's all sort of interrelated, the two markets.
Mm. And I'll just stick with you, Judith, and then I'll come and ask each of you in turn. So just a little bit curious personally, because you're all qualified lawyers, you've all got a background as legal practitioners, managing those files, managing those timesheets. What was it that made you decide to take the leap into the world of legal tech, Judith?
There's probably some insanity in all of us leaving nice cushy law jobs to do it. But look, I think, the beauty of all of us is that we have actually lived out those problems. And I don't think you can build a successful product that people are going to want unless you really know what that pain point is, and to stick very much to that, like stick to your lane of what you know. And I just think that expertise and that, that firsthand experience of some pain point of how you can do it better is absolutely imperative for companies like ours. So we know what our market is, we know what the problem is, and we're doing our best to solve that specific problem.
Okay. And Lara, was there a particular trigger or a particular moment of clarity you had when you decided to come into technology?
Absolutely. Funnily enough, unlike Judith Roxana, I actually came out of a media and corporate communications background. So I have brought a completely different lens to it, and my husband has a conveyancing background and a conveyancing firm, and approximately 10 years ago wanted to build a digital verification solution for what would be just his own firm, and it ended up growing into more with the likes of PEXA and others coming to us to say we should consider taking that or to him further abroad and outside of his company. So we started our own digital verification company approximately 10 years ago. And, we were speaking another language back then, trying to get people to digitize verification of identity, but that was a decade ago on very early days with the likes of PEXA, etc. And then I've since obviously moved into this company here at the Law Store. So it was accidental, and again, took a really big risk to leave what was a very comfortable job to go in and build that startup literally off a kitchen table, which we did, and grew it to be into one of the big major 3 verification of identity solutions at the time. And yes, now I'm here at the Law Store. I've been here approximately 2 years.
Right. And Roxana, what was your moment of clarity to join?
I think for me it was the sort of seeing the opportunity around what because in my space in law, it was all around the innovation space. Like we were really creating our own sort of CRMs, our own software. And so that was the way, like we were pretty, I was in a firm that was quite high volume in property. So that's what we did. So to me, it was more about that extension of going, where can we take this and what that enablement does, and engaging with my peers to say, look, this is really awesome stuff here, technology. We should be all onto this. And I just, I don't know if it was a moment of clarity or, whether it was time to lean into something different. It was a moment. It was a moment. I don't know if it was clarity, Jen, but yeah, no, and I think it was certainly the empathy that I brought to PEXA, I would say, in being able to go back to our customers and say, I've been there. I know exactly what you're doing and how you're feeling, and let's work on this together. And that's just been really, for me, it's been it's the best part of what I do. So very much appreciate it.
Yeah, I know with founders or with anything in technology, that empathy or like the founder's personal passion to solve the problem is absolutely a secret sauce, in my opinion, to the future success of a venture. Well, I think we are coming up for time. So that's been a fantastic discussion. Thank you so much for joining me to talk about PropTech and legal liaisons, leaning into the intersections. Rukhsana, how can people connect with you personally, and how can people find out more about PEXA?
Please, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can personally reach me or on directly through PEXA, and then we have all of our details on our website, so pexa.com.au. Perfect.
And can people also sign up for the Property Now newsletter on the website?
Yes, you can. I'll be in trouble for not actually promoting that one, Jen. So yes, you've got the Property Now and Property Insights reports that you can, as you just sort of search up PEXA Property Insights, they're subscriptions that you can have for free. So yes, absolutely. Thank you.
And Judith, how can people connect with you personally and also find out more about contracts?
Sure. I love connecting with people personally. I probably do it a bit too much, so I'd love anyone who's interested to reach out. Also on LinkedIn, and if you're based in Sydney, you can always stop by, and I'm always happy to have a coffee. And otherwise, Contracts is online, so you can hit up our website, and we've got a team to answer any questions as well. Yeah, that's us.
Okay, thank you, Judith. And Lara?
Like the girls, I am on LinkedIn, love connecting with people, whether it be in person or via LinkedIn. So please, by all means, reach out to me on there. And also we have a website, live-sign.com, that's supported by a great customer support team as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much to Rukhsana Sashankam from PEXA, Judith Hamischlag from Contracts, and Lara Paholsky from the Law Store and LiveSign for joining me today. If you are not already aware, entries for the PropTech Awards 2023 are open. They will close on the 9th of May. And on next month's panel, I will be interviewing some of last year's winners to maybe pick up some tips and tricks on how you can make the finalists and be a winner for this year. So look out for details, please, on our LinkedIn. Please follow if you don't already. And if you go over to the PropTech Association website, you can also subscribe for our newsletter. Following us on LinkedIn and subscribing for the newsletter are the best way to stay up to date with our events. Thank you very much for joining me today, and see you next month.